Good evening, everyone. My name is Jimmy Williams, and today I'll be talking about the book How to Succeed in Business Without Being White, written by Earl G Graves. Earl G Graves is a very important person in the black business community. He's the founder of the Black Enterprise magazine, which is a magazine that is an outlet of business information to the black community that was not being received previously through various news media outlets and whatnot, was not being put into the black community, nor through the education system. So it gave black people a look into the business world. But back to the book. The book itself is about Earl G Graves' different encounters in the business world as being a black man. He talks about those different times, as well as he gives points and tips to how to succeed in the business world while being black, and how to build your own business, like how the starting, points of how to start your own business if you wanted to. Another good thing about this book is the fact that it's 20 years old and the information is still valuable today. The points he give could work for any job you're trying to get that like throughout the business world, any job from top to bottom. The tips he give in this book are very, very vital on how to carry yourself, knowing that you are a minority going into a white, a white friendly business world. In the book, Earl G Graves, talks about himself, of course. In his young age, he says he has a father who is very strict and stern, and has his life set up from the time he wakes up to the time he sleeps. Said his father gave him the motivation to become a businessman. He says his father used to sell clothes in the neighborhood, and the way he carried himself and how he approached the business gave him motivation and the drive to want to do what his father did, but bigger and better. He also talks about his mother being a loving and caring person always in his life, from being on the PTA board at the school or any sporting event. She was always there. He called her the calm of the harbor, and I think that was important for him, because with a father like that, you need something to balance you out. He accredits that to his mother as a young child. He attended college at Morgan State University. That's where he began his entrepreneurship, like, fully. He said he mentioned how he did odd jobs as a young child, but in college he did the same thing, but on a bigger scale. He went as far as selling carnations during homecoming at a cheaper price than what the stores were selling them for, and just starting his business, his entrepreneurship things right there. He also goes on to talk about first job he was hired to was under Robert F. Kennedy's campaign as he was running for Senate, and through his Senate, running as Senate, he also stayed on his staff. He accredits learning how to carry himself once he became wealthy in the business world to Robert F. Kennedy, because the way he carried himself, he never flaunted it, but everybody knew that he had money, and he said that's how he wanted to be. He wanted people to know he had it, but he didn't want to have to show it to know that, and that's something a lot of people in the black community do. They have it, they want to show everybody. He wants people to know just by looking at him or knowing previously for somebody else, that this man has money. And something that stuck with me from his time, he stuck with him from his time being with Robert F. Kennedy, was a quote that he said: "The unbelievable you do immediately, the impossible takes a little longer." something. So if you think it's impossible for you to start your own business, it's not. It may take a little longer, but it's something that can be done. After the death of Robert F. Kennedy, he took a job in Barbados, where his grandparents were from, and there he learned something valuable, that the country of Barbados was ran by dark skinned people. But he learned that the whites of America, or whites period, their money was what was controlling the economy of Barbados. So he learned businesses control a country, not the government, and he found that was very valuable, to show how important it is to want to be into the business world. So yeah, and then he goes to talk about black ownership. He talks how the black community lacks ownership. How he said his father always mentioned the quote, "Always buy, never rent." And he said the black community, black people are known to not own things but rent things. And he says once, and this is 20 years ago, and it's still the same way today, that black communities begins to own things. It'll show just it'll strengthen the black community, because people we now have things, and we're not paying someone for it. It's ours. It's important. Another thing he talks about in the business world is something called the nuisance factor. Nuisance factor by Graves explains it as racism as a nuisance, not an obstacle. Something that it's not going to stop you if you don't let it. Try not. He basically saying, the racism is there, just don't make it important to you. Just block it out as much as you can, and just go as if as if you think it's not there. It'll help. And he talks about how when he entered the business world, it wasn't as due to the civil rights. The business part of the world was not. Business world was not was not as racist as it was out in the world, if that makes sense. So it was kind of easier for him to slide his way into the business world, because the business world was not focused on that right now. But at the time the book was written, that had died down. The business world was starting to acquire the racism as well. So jobs for black people were just not happening. And this book gave black people the tools that they need to equip themselves with on how to make it as a black person in a white favored business world. And gives ways to to deal with the nuisance factors. What always think business first, things like that. Never sell your soul. Never always talk to the head man and not people underneath, because they don't want to compete, especially not with a black person. That's and always an aggressive be aggressive in the business world, because it's tougher as a black man or a black person period to succeed in the business world just because you're black. So he says just be aggressive as possible, never passive. Don't be passive, just go at it. He gives tips on how to start looking for a career. Things like don't think short term is bad is one tip he gave. Sometimes you need to think small before you can think large. So he gives tips such as that. Be like I said previously, be aggressive in the business world. He says be flexible and creative. That'll help in the business world. Dress appropriately, of course. That's a very important thing, especially being black. They already that's already a knock. So being dressed inappropriately, that almost solidifies you not getting accepted into the business world. So he gives that tip. Um, he also gives 10 great challenges African Americans face. Period, just in the world. Racism in America. You know, we have to. He says developing a new generation of leaders, which is very important. We need a African American figure to show not only young kids, even middle aged people, how to be in the business world and how to make it work for themselves. Building pride in our culture, that's very important. A strong culture of we all doing the same things. It'll be key to other black people succeeding. If one doing it, then the other person want to do it, and it's very important. I found those as the most important tips. But I do recommend this book to not just black people, but other minorities. Is racism is spread across the board by white that of the doings of white people. So it'll help any minority group. I feel and it teaches you how to start your career. Have a successful business and whatnot. I do recommend the book to many people. Yeah, thank you.